As I was telling you, force is equal to the thrust is your force, and force is equal to mass into acceleration. And we had two types of engines studied till now. One was a piston engine, and the second was a jet engine. The first one, piston engine, was driving a large amount of mass with a small acceleration, achieving the same force. Okay, but in this case, we're talking about jet engines. So the jet engines actually do what? They derive a small mass but with a huge acceleration, giving us the force. Now, what is the principle behind this? It is simply your Newton's third law. If you see this nozzle and the air is coming out, then the Newton's third law will put it in the opposite direction. So if you take the same thing in a jet engine, you can see the air is being pushed outside. So when you push something, when I push myself to the wall, I'm getting pushed in the opposite direction. That is a Newton's third law. That is involved here. And this was the first type of jet engine that was actually made. Okay, it was the process of that engine, or the principle was applied. This was done by Alexandria in 250 BC, that is before Christ. This is how it works. The force that makes a law sprinkler, you can see this also. Okay, this is the example of my lawn sprinkler. What is this? You can see as this is being pushed, okay, it turns left and right accordingly. So this is an example of the same Newton's third law. Another example is this. You can see, okay, what is happening is she's being pushed backwards when she's applied the force. Okay, that is the Newton's third law. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. All right, so enough we discuss about this. Now we come to the cycle. Okay, do you remember that I told you in the piston engine we had the combustion taking place at the constant volume? In our jet engine, we will see that most of the combustion takes place at constant pressure. So that is the difference here. Okay, constant pressure, constant volume. These are the two differences. Now, if you see this diagram, this explains this very well what is happening. As I told you the process in the first video itself, there is a huge compressor that is compressing the air. Now, if you compare this and see the graph, the first process is number one. 1 to 2, you can see the pressure rising huge. The pressure has increased rapidly. Okay, this is the part of compressor. Okay, second part, if you see, goes into the combustion chamber. So if you can see, at the constant pressure, my combustion is taking place. So this is combustion. Finally, what is happening in the third chamber? I am relieving all the pressure. The pressure is going where? The pressure of the gases is being transferred to the turbine. In what energy? The mechanical energy, because the turbine is being spun and that requires some mechanical energy. So the mechanical energy is being used here. And that is how you can see the pressure being relieved. Okay, this graph describes the full cycle of a jet engine. All right, you can see I made a huge comparison between the piston and jet engines. You can see all these cycles are the same. Okay, the light blue, the sky blue, the navy blue. Okay, compression. You can see the compression happening. Then we have the combustion. This is the part where combustion is taking place, and then we have the exhaust. So all the cycles are same, just that in a jet engine, what is it? It is happening in a continuous manner, in a single stroke, we can say. Whereas there have different strokes, and you can see if you have 4-cylinder engine, in each cylinder, a new type of or any new different stroke is taking place. Okay. In the piston engine, we describe this as the Otto cycle. In our jet engine, this type of cycle is known as Brayton cycle. Brayton cycle. Okay. All right. Same graph. You can see the same video. I'm trying to explain you with different different perspectives. Pressure and in this temperature. So if you see, initially what is happening is because the pressure is increasing rapidly, my temperature also increases in the first, that is compressor part. Okay, pressure increasing, temperature is increasing. Now let's go to the second part again, combustion. In combustion, what happens? The temperature shoots up. So temperature shoots up, but the pressure remains constant. Okay, we'll see how, because we are introducing something else, that is fuel. We are missing the point. Okay, now the pressure has increased and the pressure has remained constant. The temperature has increased. Now what happens? Turbine pressure is relieved. And here you can see temperature is also reduced. Okay. Now I'll make you understand with this help of video. This is a very, very good video. I had this in my group also, that is in my flying club. So understand, we'll take some particles and today we'll live the lives of these air particles that will go inside a jet engine.
You got boys? What is it?
Just another narrow body aircraft.
Hey, my atoms are shaking. Strange. It sounds far, but I bet my last proton, that beast is much closer than you think. Hold on, people. It's a LEAP-powered aircraft. A leap into the unknown.
What on earth is a leap?
Something you sure haven't seen before. Everybody get ready. We're going in.
Someone please tell
Milliseconds.
me what just happened?
Sure. The engine makes a plane move forward. Thrust is produced by air being pulled in by the fan blades. Then this air is ejected at greater speed through the exhaust, creating the required pushing force. This is a principle of Newton's law. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. So how is this possible?
General Souls, come with me to the bypass.
Extreme sport freaks, with me, we'll hit the compressors, combustor, and turbines.
The LEAP is a high bypass ratio engine, which means that a large amount of air bypasses the core of the engine to be ejected directly into the exhaust stream. The fan acts like a propeller. Its curved rotating blades accelerate the airflow into the engine. Lighter composite materials provide better efficiency and resistance.
Here come the compressors. Get ready. Things are going to heat up.
These are the
Feel that?
compressors.
It's the low pressure compressors squeezing us. Now, the high pressure compressors.
They are compressed, the pressure has
You're going to
increased.
feel the difference.
Ultra-efficient compressors deliver optimum air pressure and temperature conditions.
See how the
combustion.
pressure is increasing, the
It's
temperature is
rising up
increasing.
now. Let's get toasted. Gentlemen,
Combustion.
meet your kerosene counterparts. These guys are going to light up your day.
Already? We usually mingle inside.
Not anymore.
I thought there'd be more of you.
Normally, yes, but in this engine, fewer of us are needed.
This little kerosene particle is right. The LEAP engine burns less fuel than former engines. In addition, the fuel nozzles mix fuel and air before they enter the combustor, creating a homogeneous mixture that minimizes the peak temperature during combustion. This technology significantly reduces emissions.
Okay, let's go.
The combustion chamber. This is the heart of the engine, where energy is created through combustion of fuel and compressed air.
Are you ready? Here comes the final blast.
What a boost! Where are we now?
Turbines.
Turbine.
Let's transfer our energy to them. This is the last extreme stage before we join the soft team. Enjoy.
Advanced material and aerodynamics make the turbines much more efficient and durable. The pressure and speed of the hot gases provide the force needed to turn the turbines and its shaft, which in turn drives the compressor and fan.
Come on, guys, don't hang around. We alone are responsible for 90% of the thrust from this baby. Here come those adrenaline junkies. So, how was it?
Fast, hot, and fantastic. What a trip.
Are you kidding me? It was us in the primary flow that did most of the.
Okay. So, see, this is just an introduction because there are a lot of things which are going to be covered soon. So we just understood one basic principle that it is the air that is being pulled in and then pushed out. That is deriving a force. That is known as Newton's third law. Secondly, we also saw that there were two sets of particles, air particles, and there was something called bypass. We will discuss all this today in this lecture if we have time, otherwise tomorrow. And then we also discussed one important factor, that it is the turbine that is spinning the compressor. Okay, so the question now comes is, if the turbine is spinning the compressor, how is this going to happen in the initial turn, or how is this engine going to start? There are multiple questions that could ask. If you have any questions, you can ask me right now. Yeah, no question. All right. So if you can see, this is the realistic picture. Is someone trying to say something? Same question, how the initial cycle is made? Okay, good. We'll get your answer straight. So as I'm discussing you, this is the realistic picture here. You can see that compressor blades are like these. The turbine blades are here on the right side, and the combustion chamber is like this. Just like piston engine, there are separate chapters for each component of the engine. Okay, this chapter is just an introduction to the jet engines. That is why we're going to cover some things very slightly, or an introduction to everything. Combustion occurs at a constant pressure. We got to know that. Combustion is occurring. These circumstances ensure that there are no fluctuations of pressure in the engine as there are in the piston engine, where peak pressures greater than 1000 pounds per square inch have to be accommodated. Here, there are not that much of workloads on the engine that would break apart the engine like a piston engine. These pressures require extremely strong and heavy construction in the piston engine, but in this case, we do not require such heavy constructions. Right. In this gas turbine, we use low octane fuels and relatively light construction for the same reason. Neither do we need to support the high amount of piston rotation so that we don't have to constrain them, or we don't have to use such high octane values also. We can use the low octane fuels as well. That is the major advantages using a constant pressure combustion, because we know for a fact that the pressure will not increase whatever you do, it will remain constant. It is the temperature that increases and the velocity of the particles that will keep on. We'll see that. The temperature limit, you might find this question has been asked repetitively in all the exams. The temperature limit of the engine is decided by how? It is decided by the components which are present just outside the combustion chamber. Okay. Now, you know what is outside the combustion chamber. First is your compressor, then is your combustion chamber, and then occurs your turbine. Okay. Now, if you see the turbine's initial thing known as nozzle guide vanes. Nozzle guide vanes. Those are the materials. Okay, those are the things which are made of some material, and that is the limiting temperature. Why? As I told you, combustion will take place at a constant pressure. Okay, its temperature is supposed to increase. We know the higher the temperature will increase, the better it is. But there should be a limit because the materials are not invincible, right? They will also burn off. So this is the deriving factor known as NGV or nozzle guide vanes. If you see this at the bottom and you direct yourself, you can see here. As the name suggests, these are nozzle guide vanes. What they do? They guide the air particles which are high in temperature to the turbines, to the to the required part of the turbines, so that the energy could be transferred into the mechanical energy. All right. The higher the temperature attained in the combustion, the greater the expansion of the gases, hence the greater the efficiency. The limit is imposed by the materials from what we manufacture, the nozzle guide vanes and the turbine blades. Okay. The important gases that will also be used in this are the ideal gases. PV is equal to nRT. Okay, this will throughout your journey remain with you. I don't have to tell you what is Charles law, Boyle's law, because I've already discussed that in the piston. So we're going to skip this. So what are the main stages of the gas turbine? I just told you, but let's go in brief. During compression, work is done to increase the pressure and decrease the volume of the air. Pressure is increased, volume is reduced. Temperature is also increased. Higher compression ratios give higher thermal ratio. That is why in the video you saw there were two sets of compressors. Not only one, there were two. Because higher the compression, better will be the combustion. Okay. During combustion, we add fuel to burn with the air, increasing the temperature, and there is for corresponding rise in the volume. So you can see volume increases and the temperature of course increases, right? Pressure remains constant, volume increases. Then we have what? We have the expansion. That is when some of the energy in the gas stream is being converted into mechanical energy because of the turbine. By the turbine, there is a decrease in the pressure. There is a decrease in the pressure and the volume increases again. Okay. The turbine is the most efficient at converting the kinetic energy or the heat energy into the mechanical energy. That's what it is used, right? So the nozzle guide vanes, which are before the turbine, stage are shaped to form convergent ducts. Now, what is a convergent duct? Simply like a funnel. Okay, these are formed by the nozzle guide vanes in order to do what? In order to do what? To increase the velocity. Right? Chalo, we'll discuss this convergent duct. Okay, this is the design of the duct. Now, if you see one of the following, if you see the convergent duct which I was talking about, like a funnel, velocity is increased. Now we go back to the formula. PV is equal to nRT. Now N and R are not required, so we'll exclude that. Now important thing to remember is V is not your velocity, V is volume. Pressure is directly proportional to temperature. That means that when velocity is increasing, we know for a fact that the pressure will reduce. This implies that you can see temperature also reduces. Okay, and in the left case also there is a divergent duct. So pressure, sorry, and the velocity is reducing. This implies that pressure will increase. We know this for sure because of the Bernoulli's theorem. Remember Bernoulli's theorem? Okay, pressure increases. This implies that temperature will also increase. So both Bernoulli, which is pressure plus kinetic energy constant. Okay, both these theorems combined together will give you the same result for the divergent and the convergent duct. So if in case you forget, always remember Bernoulli theorem and your pressure volume. PV is equal to N. All right, you can see here as well. If I combine both the diagrams, this is like a jet engine. Okay, we have initially a compressor, so we are trying to increase the pressure as much as we can. When we increase the pressure, it goes as combustion. Combustion takes place, and then finally, I'm going outside the exhaust gas. All right, so that is how this is working in a normal engine. Discussing about a divergent duct, you can see where the divergent duct has taken place. Okay, the use of divergent duct is simple. We have to increase the pressure as much as we can. So you might know where we include it. We include it here, just in the combustion chamber. Okay, after leaving the combustion chamber, we want to increase the pressure and temperature as much as we can. Okay, that's why compressor, that's why the combustion cycle. So that is where we put the divergent duct also. Okay, the air is sometimes referred to as compressor delivery area, which is the highest pressure in the engine. Where is the highest pressure in the engine? Just before my combustion chamber. Okay, that is why it is known as compressor delivery air. That means that the air is delivered by the compressor. Because after a compressor, there is a combustion. The pressure will remain standard, or the change, it won't change. After which we have a turbine. So turbines will absorb the pressure. So the compressor delivery area is the area where you will have the highest pressure. The advantages of increasing the pressure, we've already discussed. Increase in pressure to drive the compressor later. Why? So if you increase the pressure, the turbines will have more energy. And if the turbines have more energy, the compressor will drive faster. The decrease in velocity will make the task of combustion chamber less difficult. Okay, so decrease in velocity. If velocity is reduced, the pressure will increase. So that means that when the particles go inside the combustion, you will see that it is easier to burn them, or it is easier to combust them. We'll see this way. No. Okay. Now we'll discuss different types of turbo engines. This is one of the earliest types, a straight pure turbojet. Okay, you can see the aircraft. Simply, the aircraft itself is a big turbojet. Okay, if I open this aircraft and if I want to see the engine, it will look like this. Okay, this is a pure straight turbojet. You can see compressor, combustion, and turbine. Here, compressor, combustion, turbine, exhaust. Now you can see this example. In this, we have one compressor. It's a one. See, this whole set is one. Okay, you need to understand this clearly. So compressor, then we have the combustion and exhaust. It's the simplest and the straight turbojet. When we join a compressor, okay, this is my compressor. Let's say I have joined it with the turbine. Of course, turbine is joined. and this is joined by a shaft. This whole thing is known as one spool. What is it known as? Spool. So this is one spool. Okay. Also known as single spool compressor. Now don't confuse yourself with axial. Okay, not important right now. We'll discuss that. We have a different chapter for that. Then is a turboprop. You must have seen them in your aircrafts, in your private aircrafts. Okay, so it's a set of propeller and your turbojet. How it looks like inside? It looks like this. If you see this, there's a propeller attached, but it is attached with the gearbox along with the turbojet. So it becomes turbojet plus propeller turboprop. Okay, you can see compressor, combustion, turbine, same thing, except for this whole system is driving not a fan, but a gearbox. That gearbox is linked with the turboprop. Okay. Okay, some important things here is that in a turboprop, a high proportion of gas steam energy is used to drive the compressor. But whereas in the turbojet, the energy remains used as a thrust, the energy in this is used in the driving the propeller. Only a small amount of jet thrust is available from the exhaust system, that is known as residual thrust. Okay, in simple language, what I explained you is the same thing. Okay, how do we drive the thrust in a turbojet? By pushing the air back. Now you need to understand that most of the thrust produced in turboprop is not by pushing the air back. It is by spinning this gearbox. Okay, and the rest of which thrust is produced, actually it is known as residual thrust. Okay, the output from a turbo propeller engine is the sum of shaft power developed at this turbine and the residual thrust. So as I told you, this is a shaft. So shaft power plus my residual thrust, that gives me the total amount of thrust produced, or shaft equivalent shaft horsepower. Not required that much, but I'm just giving you a hint about what we are going to study in the next 1 week. This is how it looks like. Okay, this is my compressor, combustion, turbine spinning what? Turbine spinning the shaft. That shaft is connected with the gearbox. This gearbox spins the propeller, and this set of engine is known as turboprop. Then comes our helicopters. Helicopters also have a turbojet. Now, this must be an interesting thing. Some of might not know you also, but maybe I didn't know that when I studied it that in my class. If you see helicopter, I'm going to rip apart this aircraft helicopter also. Okay, when I rip apart it, I find that there is an engine like a turbo shaft. Okay, same thing. You can see same thing is present here, except for the turbine spinning a fan or nothing. Turbine is attached to a propeller shaft. This propeller shaft would be connected to the wings, or the wings, or the whatever you want to call the rotor. Okay, if you see how this goes, okay, this is how it is attached. Okay, see how it's attached. This is the inlet, compressor, the combustion chamber. Okay, same thing, everything is same. Okay, sorry, I was going opposite. The compressor, combustion, and the turbine. Okay, so the airflow is this. Yeah, this is the inlet. So the compressor is there, and this, instead of attaching in this way, they have attached it in the opposite direction. So they have attached with the turbine in this direction. This is the shaft, output shaft. This in turns the gearbox, and this in turn rotates the helicopter's rotor, or the rotor blades. Okay, that is how the helicopters fly. Okay, that is how the water fly. Turbo shaft engine can be thought as a turboprop engine with a, instead of a propeller, they having a shaft that derives the rotor. Perfect. This explained perfect. Turbo shaft engines can be used to drive helicopter rotors. This type of engine is also used in APU. Now I will give you a hint by APU. Okay, so this is something which is important for you to understand what question Saffron was asking us. Okay, and what I also asked.
It is used when engines are failed, right?
It is used by
It is used when engines are cold.
Yeah. Finally, we'll come to the main, our low bypass ratio engine installed in most of the commercial aircraft. If you see that, it is again the same set: compressor, combustion, turbine. But we have something else here. What is this? We have something afterburner. Okay. We have something known as low pressure fan. Okay. We have something, a cone. Now these three things have been added, if you see, as an advantage, because we want more efficiency, sometimes more power, and sometimes we just want to save some cost. In order to do all this, people applied a lot of brains and they found out the simple solution: attach a fan in front of it and we will find it. So we'll look at it. If you look at it, what is the bypass ratio? Bypass ratio is the ratio of mass airflow which flows through the fan duct, mass of the air directly to the hot port. Now, as we saw in the video, there were two options for the air particles. One which were okay, one which we wanted to cool down and just go outside without being in the combustion chamber. The second one were the ones which wanted to go through the combustion chamber. So if you have two options, you can see here, one will actually go around this. Okay, the second one will have to go inside this. Now, both of them decide the bypass ratio. How much air is actually passing? It is not going to the engine, it is passing. So the low ratio is considered to be the region of 2:1, whereas a high ratio would be 5:1. Now you can get the value from common sense here. 5:1 means that 5 times the air which is going inside. So it would be 5 times which is going outside. So if, let's say, 5 particles go outside, 1 particle will go inside. That is known as bypass ratio. Okay. It is also known as cold air to hot air ratio. Why? Because the outside one will be cold. It is not going to into combustion chamber, so it will remain cold. But inside one will become hotter because of combustion. From the high pressure compressor, the air follows the path through the combustion chambers into the turbine before joining these. So you can see both of them join together and leave the jet engine. This is known as low bypass ratio present in your airline. Of course, your afterburner is not a part of your airline, right? Now let's discuss this twin spool. I discussed with you what is single spool. Same thing, just attach two of them. Okay, we have single spool. Okay, this pink one is a single one, single shaft. If I have two of them, you can see this blue one and this one. It is known as twin spool. Okay. Now you need to understand this also clearly, that this compressor, there are two compressors here, 1 and 2. Okay, the same 1 and 2 will drive the 1 and 2. So if I talk about this turbine, I will name it 2, not 1, because it is present in front, but it is driving the compressor number 2. So this also becomes 1. This is how you should always imagine the engine. The one which is deriving the engine should be named the same. Why I'm saying this is because you need to understand these are named after pressure. If you see P1, okay, if you see N1, where is N1? N1 is present somewhere here. Okay, N1 is my low pressure compressor. Why? Can someone tell me why? Why? Because first the air is entering, it is less compressed, so low pressure compressor. After this, the job of the second compressor is what? To compress it more. So high compressor. You can see the N2 is known as high compressor, high pressure compressor. Okay. The second reason why, if you see the turbines, okay, that this one, the N2 turbine is what? It is having a high pressure to face. So a high pressure turbine. Then the first one again comes back, that's the turbine. So it is facing a less pressure. So a low pressure turbine. Okay. Not that complicated. It's just the part you have to start imagining. As I'm explaining, you start imagining it. Okay. Don't write notes or something, just start to imagine. Once you go back from the class, you can go ahead and see the notes. Same thing. You can see here also, this is the twin spool engine and the air. Okay, see, these are all bypass air. Okay, these are bypass air which are not even introduced to the combustion chamber, and only one of them goes inside. 5:1 if you're taking the ratio. Okay, and after them they meet. Okay, low pressure shaft, high pressure shaft, and other structures are required. Okay, and this huge beautiful thing is known as the fan. That makes the engine known as turbo fan. Any questions up till now? We've discussed a lot of types of engine.
Can you explain that spool?
Spool is this. Okay, the blue one is one spool, the pink one is second spool. There are two spools in this. Okay, so why is it two twins? There are two. One is this blue one, second one is your pink one. Okay, so you can see the turbo fan here also. This is my fan. Okay. And this is the high bypass ratio. This is the low bypass military aircraft. Okay, so I might have done that. So in the military aircraft, we have a low bypass fan, and in our commercial aircraft, we have a high bypass. So I replaced the picture. No problem. I'll make you understand. Because why high bypass? Because if we have less number of particles going inside, then we will have less combustion. So we will save that. Can you unmute yourself? Sorry, mute. Yeah. Okay. As I was explaining you, if less particles go inside, that means less combustion. That means what? Saving fuel, and fuel is saved, so the cost of the flight is saved. So high bypass ratio would be found where? You will find that in the commercial aircrafts. Whereas low bypass ratio, why? Because the military or the air force, what's its primary goal? To face the targets, to go and destroy the targets and run from the enemy. So if we look at this, we have a lot of particles, air particles, which will be going inside the combustion chamber, because they don't actually worry about the fuel, right? In the initial part, why will they worry about the fuel? So, and of course, that is the only reason they have something known as afterburners also. That we'll discuss, we don't require right now. Okay. So this is why high bypass and low bypass. So if you can see, this is my low bypass. Okay, I just changed the picture, I think. So this is a low bypass, okay, which we already discussed. Now we'll discuss the high bypass ratio. You can see this huge fan. You might have found that in the Indigo aircraft when you're sitting A320s and all. You might have found that. So this fan is the involvement that actually makes it a high bypass ratio. You can see a lot of space present here, making it a lot. The cold air is a lot. That is why you find it that it is more efficient, less fuel, more cooling of the turbine, and less noise levels. That is why commercial jets have less noise also, because less combustion is taking place, and the combustion is the place where the most noise is created, because they are driving the turbines separately. Okay, this is the fifth type, or the high bypass ratio turbo fan, as I told you. Okay, all right. Any questions up till now? We've discussed a lot of things in this. Okay, if we see up till now what we discussed, and I put together all of them in a chart, we have this. Okay, turboprops, you can see mostly efficient where? Near the low speeds. Okay, bypass ratio, as the bypass ratio reduces, their efficiency increases with the speed. And finally, we have pure turbojet, which the first photo which I showed you, those were used in the World War II times. Okay, they didn't even care for a single drop of fuel. They wanted to destroy the enemies, so they didn't care about that. That's why they used the most amount of fuel they can, and that were known as pure turbojets. Propulsive efficiency is also asked in the exams. Propulsive efficiency is simple. You have a particular kinetic energy and you're converting that into a. So the efficiency of conversion of kinetic energy to propulsive work is termed as propulsive efficiency. Okay. Simply how much work done on the aircraft divided by work done on airflow plus work wasted in the exhaust, right? So how much thrust I'm going to produce divided by how much airflow did I push and how much of that airflow was wasted. That is my propulsion efficiency, and you can see the propulsion efficiency different levels. Okay. Then we have the triple spool also. You keep on adding and you can keep on getting more and more better engines. Okay, so you can see this pink one is our first spool. Then we have the cream one, second one, and then finally blue one, the third one. Okay, this you can see the huge compressor fan. Okay, triple spool. Okay, you can see the triple spool and how big is this. Okay, you might find that in the 777X. Okay, that engine itself, if I don't remember, the G190, I think, whatever the name was, that engine itself is equivalent to the size of a Boeing 737. I'm not doing a comparison right now, but you can look at it in the pictures. Okay, you can see here that there are 3 different cycles or 3 different spools: low pressure, intermediate, and the high pressure. Okay. Of course, we will not discuss about the afterburner, but this is just for curiosity. Okay, that is placed even if the exhaust gases haven't burned properly. Okay, this afterburner burns them, producing a lot of boost that is used for the fighter aircraft. Okay, this is a 3-stage fan compressor. It's a very useful thing. This is just the end of chapter, so I'm just using the time left to explain you.
Like, why do we only use less combustion commercial jet? What are the advantages?
There are advantages of less combustion.
Hmm.
I just told you, right?
I mean, like, why can't we use high combustion
Why
as
can't
we use for military things?
why can't we use combustion?
No, high combustion. Like commercial jets, as you told, like they will use less combustion, right?
Why? Tell me.
Yeah.
Don't you want to save fuel?
Okay, just to save the fuel.
Yeah, these are the all the advantages only. Now I've told you. You have more professional efficiency. You have less fuel okay? You have more cooling because less of combustion, more of fueling, and we have less noise. Good.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll be distributing the notes as well. Okay, you can go ahead and start reading the notes, and we can start this, and we can expect this week itself the exam, so be prepared of it. All right.
Yeah. Also, you said like